You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, biohacking, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere and anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your host, Dr. Justin Marcagiani, as he answers your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio. Feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com where you can access our full podcast transcriptions. While you're there, you can also sign up for our thyroid and female hormone video series. This series goes into the root cause of why your hormones are out of balance. While you're there, you can also schedule a functional medicine consult with Dr. Justin, myself, where we'll dig deeper into the root cause of your health challenges. Feel free and think of sharing this podcast with at least one person. This podcast grows by people sharing it. Sharing is caring. If you can think of one person that can benefit from this information, please feel free and share it. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. You can also click below the video or podcast where you'll see the iTunes review button and leave us a review. You can also sign up for the newsletter at beyondwellnessradio.com where you'll get updates before anyone else. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. We are live here with Evan Brand in the house. Feel free and chime in on some of your questions. Today's podcast is going to be a part 2 on anxiety. We're going to be connecting gut health to anxiety. We're going to be talking about some lab tests that we can use to assess the root cause of why you may be anxious or moody. So I'm really excited to dive in, Evan.
Yeah, man, me too. So I'll just start with my personal experience. And I don't know if you experience much anxiety. I don't think you've ever really said, hey, I've had anxiety, but I definitely did when I had gut infections, when I had H. pylori, when I had parasites, when I had bacterial overgrowth, when I had candida overgrowth. I mean, I had kind of a quadruple whammy that I really think stemmed from me doing a round of antibiotics after I got my wisdom teeth and my 12-year molars extracted. You know, I had a round of antibiotics after both of those procedures. I think that's what led to the candida, and then probably start to tear away my gut barrier. And then I ended up getting leaky gut situation. You go swimming in Barton Springs a few times, you swallow some creek water, you get some parasites down in your gut, and then all of a sudden everything falls apart and you're anxious for no reason. So that was at least my story, my initial experience with anxiety, because I'm not an anxious person by nature, but that made me anxious when I had those gut bugs.
Totally makes sense. I mean, gut health is so important because all of your nutrients get absorbed through your gut. So just to kind of review physiology, because we want to connect the physiology and the biochemistry to why you feel the way you feel. That way you're not just taking doctor's orders, you're understanding how these things are working. So we have our stomach where we chew up our food, we swallow it, goes down our esophagus into our stomach. Digestion starts in the mouth via chewing. So just chewing up our good proteins is going to be huge. That starts the digestive process and increases the surface area for hydrochloric acid and enzymes in the stomach. So we increase hydrochloric acid in the stomach. That lowers the pH. It makes it more acidic, right? Because pH is lower. And then that activates certain proteolytic enzymes in our stomach like pepsin, which starts that protein digestion process. That nice acidity that enters into our small intestine, which then triggers bile release. So we start breaking down the fat. Fat's important because vitamin A, D, E, and K have instrumental effects on our physiology. Fat-soluble vitamins, especially vitamin D, for instance, has some effects at helping with mood as well. We also know vitamin K and vitamin A are really important for thyroid function, and we know thyroid can have a major implication on mood as well. So low vitamin A, low thyroid. But in general, all of these proteins and amino acids and even these minerals, these tranquilizing minerals like magnesium that help our body relax, they chill out our heart, they chill out our mood. L-theanine, these amino acids get broken down in our stomach. They get ionized in our stomach and get reabsorbed again in our small intestine. So we know the digestive processes are so important for these nutrients getting to where they need to be so we can feel good.
Talking to your microphone, go close like this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I think you might be using your built-in microphone.
Let me double check that.
Because it sounds a little echoey. Go on your little gearbox on Hangouts there. See if you see.
Oh, yep, you're right. How about now?
A million times better.
Okay, I apologize for that, everyone. So we got a better mic up and ready to go. Excellent.
Oh, we still heard you, but now we've got that studio quality going.
Love it. Excellent.
Yeah, so here's the deal. I mean, everything you said makes perfect sense, assuming you're actually digesting and assimilating all these nutrients and breaking everything down, like you said. And so where the domino goes bad, I mean, for a lot of people, is just being prescribed an acid blocking medication. So you may think, well, how in the world does anxiety tie into me being on, Pepcid or Zantac or some acid blocker? Well, the way Justin described it was perfect. You take all these amino acids from your dietary proteins, assuming you're eating those. If you're eating a bagel and, cream cheese for breakfast, that's not going to cut it. We're eating a good quality meat, a bacon, a sausage, handful of pecans, a half an avocado, some blueberries. That's a hell of a breakfast. If you're eating that, you're going to be getting some amino acids that can be broken down and therefore turned into, for one, create muscle tissue.
Exactly.
Number two, create neurotransmitters. But if you're on an acid blocker because you had heartburn and you go into one visit with your doctor and they say, okay, you need to be on an acid blocker, you could start the whole domino effect against your health just from something that simple. And then you end up with anxiety. So then you get referred over to your psychiatric doctor and they put you on Xanax. And it's not a Xanax deficiency. It was the acid blocker messed up your digestion. Your digestion issues created the inability for you to absorb your amino acids and make brain chemicals. So now you're anxious and depressed. So then you get put on an antidepressant. So before you know it, in 3 seconds, you're on an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety, and you're on an acid blocker. And then maybe you can't sleep good because, as Justin mentioned, you're breaking down these relaxing things like you're getting magnesium from your diet. So if you don't have enough of that, or let's say you don't have enough B6 to convert serotonin to melatonin, now you're not sleeping well. So then you get on a fourth med, which is a sleep drug. I mean, this is how it happens. This is why the average person's on multiple pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, and I don't even think you talked about cholesterol medication on there as well, right?
No, I didn't.
Because cholesterol is going to be the building block for all your hormones. So then you have maybe your cholesterol starting to creep up because of inflammation, or you're doing too much carbohydrate, which stimulates insulin. Insulin jacks up your cholesterol. Inflammation will also do it too. So if you're eating inflammatory foods, that could do it. And then now your cholesterol is high, you're prescribed a statin, and then the statin is going to decrease your CoQ10 production. So now your CoQ10 is lower. Your building blocks for your hormones are lower. And we know statins have other cognitive mood side effects as well. So then that's going to create more issues. And then from there, after that, then you're on a libido medication like a Viagra or something like that, or Celexa, to help with ED. And then that's going to create more side effects and more issues. And then God forbid you have a bunch of mood issues. You go to if you're a female now, you go to your conventional doctor, they're typically going to recommend a birth control pill or maybe even an SSRI on top of that. So then you're just screwed because you're just stacking one medication on top of another medication. And then all these medications have various side effects that are then treated with other medications. And these medications also create nutritional deficiencies. So birth control pills will lower magnesium and zinc and certain B vitamins and folate, which are really important for methylating your neurotransmitters, which is really important, especially magnesium, for calming and relaxing your heart, for helping to, let's just say, be the shifter between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, meaning parasympathetic relaxation, sympathetic stress, go, 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 go. We need the ability to downshift from the sympathetic of stress and go to the parasympathetic of relaxation and chill out.
Well, let's add one more drug to the mix that 100 million Americans are on, which is blood pressure medication.
Right.
And valsartan and all of these commonly prescribed blood pressure medications are all getting recalled now due to containing carcinogenic chemicals. There's just type in valsartan cancer and you can look at the research yourself. And these people get put on blood pressure medication because they can't regulate their blood pressure because, as you mentioned, you lose that parasympathetic sympathetic balance. You're depleted in magnesium because you're not digesting, because you've got gut infections, or you're on acid blockers. So now you're on acid blocker, anti-anxiety, antidepressant. You're on, like you said, Celexa, and now you're on blood pressure, and then you're on a statin all at the same time. And none of that is going to contribute to a long, healthy life.
Nope, none of it will, man. So really important. We're trying to get to the root underlying cause here. So let's shift gears into lab testing. What are some tests that we can do to assess what's going on? So number one, I just think looking at your digestion, just doing a comprehensive gut test to look at inflammation in your gut. Because we know inflammation in our gut will create inflammation in our brain. It activates these cells called microglial cells, which are essentially the immune cells in our brain. When they are activated, they will create, brain fog. So that obviously, the more foggy you are, the more anxious you could feel as well. So inflammation in the gut could create inflammation in the brain. So we got to look at gut functions. We want to look at a comprehensive gut test that's going to assess inflammation in the gut, like calprotectin. We want to look at your IgA or your immune levels, because if your immune system is overactive, that could be sucking up a lot of resources, right? So for instance, the more your immune system is overactive, that's like the equivalent of you, let's just say, leaving the water on in one of the guest bedrooms in your house that you never go to. Your water bill's huge. You don't know why, because you're not using a lot of water, but there's water being used in the background. It's kind of like that. You have all these immune resources that are being used in the background because your immune system is chronically firing off. So your immune function. Next is looking at various candida overgrowths, yeast overgrowths, which have a huge effects because they produce various acid aldehydes and toxic byproducts. And they also create chemicals that make you crave a whole bunch of sugary stuff. So it becomes harder to stay on a good dietary template. Next would be SIBO, or various bacterial overgrowths, whether it's Klebsiella or Citrobacter or Prevotella or Pseudomonas. These are all bacterial overgrowths that are dysbiotic, meaning bad. So we have more of the bad stuff and less of the beneficial probiotics like Lactobacillus and Bifidobacter, etc. And then we have various parasitic infections, whether it's Cryptosporidium or Giardia, or it could be anything like Entamoeba histolytica, Blastocyst hominis, Diamoeba fragilis, various parasitic infections, and even H. pylori, which is another kind of bacterial infection too, or worms.
I've seen a lot of crypto the last few weeks. It's very interesting because during the winter, I didn't see much crypto. So I don't know if that's because people further south, maybe like our, Texas, Florida, California clients, maybe they're getting back in creeks and rivers and streams and lakes for the season or what. But I hadn't seen much crypto. And then over the last 3 weeks, I've seen probably, 15, 20 people, including children, even as young as age 2 and 3 years old, with Cryptosporidium. And I had crypto. So I'll tell you from personal experience, it causes a lot of stomach pain, nausea. It can cause appetite swings where sometimes you sit down at the dinner table, you just can't eat. You're just not hungry.
Right.
And obviously anxiety could come along with that, because now if you're getting robbed of your nutrition by crypto, you're not going to be absorbing your amino acids, and then you can't make your GABA, for example. So now you're tired, you're wired, you're stressed, and you just don't know why. So you did a great job of talking about the stool test. You mentioned the candida. We do find candida on the stool test when you and I look at that. However, we often find it more accurately on the organic acids panel, because we're going to measure the gases that candida produces rather than the actual candida itself. So in the stool, we're trying to find the DNA of candida, which is a little harder to do. And so we often see a lot of false negatives on stool testing. And so this is why, and just to quickly compare and contrast, your conventional gastroenterologist that you get referred to, they're not going to be running these type of tests. Maybe in 10 or 20 years, this will be the gold standard. But for right now, they're not running these tests. And so even if they did a, quote, stool test, their stool test is probably still not as sensitive as the technology we're using, because we're kind of on the bleeding edge here. So that being said, the organic acids profile, we'll look at the gases. And then when you look at the gases, you can also look at other fungus too. So we could even look at things in their environment like mold, because on page 1 of the oat test, there's different markers that tie into candida, but there's also different markers that we found that indicate a colonization of mold. So you could have mold in your sinus cavity that's so close to your brain, it can go through the blood-brain barrier, and that'll cause anxiety too. So now we're talking about, fixing someone's sinus infection as well as fixing their gut infection and fixing their home environment potentially, because we've seen people like in Florida. I had one client who, she had so much candida in her house. We did these little petri dishes for her house. She had so much candida in her house, so much anxiety, and we fixed her gut. And then 2 to 3 months later, she's got a white tongue again. The candida comes back. So then we give her herbs again. Her gut gets better, and then the candida comes back. So I said, well, we need to test your house. So we test her house. The candida in her house is off the chart. So now what we did is we did the fogger. We fogged her house with essential oils, and the candida in the house is gone. So now she's staying free and clear of the candida overgrowth. So this is why you got to take it a step further than even the functional medicine people saying, fix the gut, fix the gut, fix the gut. Now it's, you got to fix the home microbiome as well as your internal microbiome. You can't just cherry pick.
Yeah, and for every person, this may not be the root issue, but it's important to look at. I mean, especially if we can do a history and you feel better coming out of the house, or we can even just start with a decent plate testing and then even go from the urinary mycotoxin collection after that. Because if we can see, if we can put a check in each one of those boxes, and that gives us more confidence that we have to start dealing with the home environment, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the home, like you said, it's not everyone. I'm kind of over paranoid about the issue now, and so I'm checking everyone's houses. But I'm only finding maybe 20% of the people we're testing their homes are showing up with a problem. There's a lot of people that are coming out and their home is perfectly fine. And I just say, you know what, for $150 US, it's worth the peace of mind. Do the plates, check your numbers, and see. And in worst case scenario, I'm wrong, and your home is not contributing to your anxiety or your other health problems.
I 100% agree. And also, one of the things that I think you brought to my attention that's very interesting is that you may have no history of water damage or no apparent water damage in your house at all, but you just may have a high amount of moisture in your house because of the climate you live in. And one of the things that you did was you invested in a good quality dehumidifier that attached to your HVAC, so it pulled the humidity out of the air, which then made it harder for mold to grow, because mold needs that humidity over 50% in the house for it to grow. So you were able to now decrease the humidity, because there are certain times where you may not have an air conditioner on because it's 60 or 70 degrees out or 50 degrees out, but the humidity is still high even though the temperature is low. And that's one of the benefits that you have of having a whole house dehumidifier attached to your HVAC to suck out that moisture, which prevents the fuel source for this mold to grow.
Right. And in the spring, we love to have the windows open, right? So I actually looked at this over the weekend. We opened up all the windows. There was one day we had where it was like 70, 72 degrees out. So it's perfect. We open all the windows up, but then I go downstairs and I hear the dehumidifiers running just in overtime. And I go look at the percentage and they're up to 52%. So people that open their, and mold grows at 50 or above. And so when you're like, oh, the weather's beautiful, let's leave the windows open for a week straight, or let's leave the windows open all night, or let's leave the windows open every day, all day. That's allowing all that moist air from outside, assuming your climate's moist, to come inside. And then that's increasing the humidity in the home. So I love the idea, open the windows 10 to 15 minutes a day, let fresh air come in, wash out formaldehyde, wash out any VOCs in your home. But you don't want to do it all the time. A friend of mine, mutual friend of ours, Daniel Vitalis, he lives up in Maine. It's really moist up there. I don't remember the full details, but I remember him saying something about him having a mold problem in one of his previous houses. I think he might have said it on the podcast, because he left his windows open all the time because he lived in the woods and he loved the sounds of nature and all that. So he had his windows open all the time. But I mean, all that moisture was just forming on his windowsills. And so you gotta think about the building materials that we're using. Like our ancestors, they were outside all the time, but they had like a buffalo hide. They had a bison hide, they didn't have drywall and, treated wood and all that sort of stuff. They didn't have the same building materials that we use today. So trying to compare, my grandma, she lived in the summer and she had no air conditioning and her windows were open all the time. Yeah, but her house probably wasn't built with modern drywall. So those materials could withstand moisture. Our modern day materials are more moisture sensitive.
Exactly. Yep. 100%.
So that's a bit of a tangent, but let's get back to the testing. So we didn't talk about adrenal testing for anxiety. I mean, that was one of my problems too, is, I would feel pretty good during the day, but then at night I would get real anxious before I would go to bed. And I had that nighttime spike of cortisol that we so often see.
Yeah. So what we do is we look at the cortisol rhythm throughout the day, and then the cortisol rhythm gives you a window to how the outer part of your adrenal glands are doing. So we look at this high to low to lower to lowest type of taper. This taper is important because it's set by our HPA axis. So if we start to see dysregulations where it's lower in the morning or higher at night, or it's kind of bouncing around, I call it the pinball effect. It's pinballing. That could create mood issues, number one. Number two, we also look deeper at the inner part of the adrenal glands called the medulla, which make a lot of adrenaline. Adrenaline or noradrenaline, same thing as norepinephrine and epinephrine. Medicine uses a lot of different words to say the same thing. So we'd also want to look at that, because if we're really stimulating a lot of adrenaline or noradrenaline, that's helpful to know. So we'd want to run a good cortisol rhythm test to look at free and total cortisol, which is great. And we'd also want to look at some of the amino acid metabolites of some of these neurotransmitters. Like we'd look at vanilmandrolate to get a window into adrenaline metabolism. We'd look at homovanillate to get a window into dopamine metabolism. And also we'd want to get a window into B6, because B6, especially folate and B12, are really important for methylation. And a lot of these brain chemicals like epinephrine and adrenaline, choline, they have to get methylated. So we need this carbon and 3 hydrogens to bind to it, to methylate it, to activate it. And that requires sulfur amino acids. So if we're excessively stressed and overly methylating our brain chemicals because we're making a lot of adrenaline, we're going to be burning through a lot of sulfur amino acids as well. And we need sulfur amino acids to also detoxify. So we may not have a lot of extra sulfur left over to run glucuronidation, N-acetylation, glutathione conjugation. We may not have enough of these sulfur compounds to run these other accessory pathways, which are really important for what? Detoxifying us from mold, heavy metals, various organochlorines or pesticides or stressors in the environment. So that's why it's really important to look at some of these other accessory nutrients that are involved in the stress handling response.
Yeah, well, let's take what you said a step further. So now you're deficient in sulfur, you're not detoxifying properly, you do get exposed to pesticides, you go out to a restaurant with your family on the weekend, have a good dinner, knowingly eating pesticide, and then that's going to kill off good bacteria in your gut. Those good bacteria are supposed to make your brain chemicals. So now we go all the way back to anxiety again. So it is this, kind of self-repeating cycle. So this is why you can't just focus on one aspect of the body. You can't just put all your eggs in the gut basket, all your eggs in the adrenal basket. This is why Justin and I don't really say, we're an expert at adrenals, or we're an expert at gut, or we're an expert at this or that. Because if you go in with a microscope and you're just looking at this one problem, like you could see the thyroid and see there's a problem with the thyroid, and that could cause anxiety too, right? Like if you have Hashimoto's, you've got antibodies that attack the thyroid and you get a little bit of hormone into the bloodstream, that could cause anxiety for sure. Yeah. I mean, you and I've talked about that extensively. However, if we just focus on thyroid, like, okay, we're going to give you motherwort or something else to calm the thyroid. Well, did we fix the reason that the thyroid was autoimmune in the first place? Did we fix the immune system attacking the thyroid by looking at adrenals and gut and chemicals and all that? Or did we just give someone an herb to calm the thyroid and that was all we did? Because if we did just that, then we fail.
Correct. And I'm seeing this more and more with various functional medicine doctors that are out there. What I'm seeing is you have people that are just the thyroid functional medicine person or just the gut functional medicine person. And there's nothing wrong with that from a marketing standpoint. Like I'm going to market to those people, but I'm going to look at everything once they're in there. I get that. That's kind of where my focus is. You want to reach out to people so they resonate with you, but you're still looking at the whole thing. I'm seeing people only focus on just the thyroid or only focused on just the gut. And then I'm looking at their labs. I'm seeing these people that are now coming to me as patients. I'm like, oh, it's really too bad because this patient had an anemia and that anemia was missed because this person was only focused on the thyroid. Or, hey, this person had a adrenal issue or other issues going on and they were only focused on the gut and they didn't fix those other things. Does that make sense?
It does.
So just be careful. A lot of people out there are focused on, they're reaching out to functional medicine practitioners that are marketing one thing or the other for their anxiety, but they may be missing in the treatment a whole body system that's so important. So when people are out there looking for functional medicine doctors, if you find someone that you like, that's great. Just make sure when you interview them and you talk to them, make sure they're going to be looking at all of the underlying systems, not just focused on one system like the gut or one system like just the adrenals. Make sure you're looking at the whole thing.
Yeah, I think over the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to be a bigger problem just because of the internet. The internet allows us to do what we do, and we're very grateful for the opportunity. But that also allows other people to go pick up some type of a credential and then market a specific flavor, if you will, of functional medicine. Like I'm going to be the hormone girl. And I had a woman last week who she went to this hormone functional medicine specialist, and the lady's losing hair in clumps and clumps and clumps every time she takes a shower. And we look at her blood work, and she's never been this. She goes to this hormone lady. I don't know how a hormone functional medicine lady supposedly never tested her blood, didn't look at ferritin. Her ferritin level was a 6. The lady can't hardly catch her breath. She's got major anxiety. She's losing tons of hair. I'm like, look at your ferritin. Like if you don't fix that, you're not going to get your hair back no matter what this lady says about your bioidentical hormone plan. So it's just, I think it just comes with the territory of this, because as you say, people are trying to market, but you got to make sure that they're turning over all the rocks, because the last thing we want you to do is go spend like, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. And then now you got to start all over because you didn't address the other stuff.
You want the complete picture. Let's connect in some other things. So obviously we have female hormone issues like progesterone or low estrogen or estrogen dominance if you're a cycling female. Obviously we have the menopausal kind of side where hormones could just be low across the board, and we're starting to have a lot of menopausal symptoms from low progesterone, low estrogen, because now our follicles, our ovarian follicles are used up. And then we have obviously on the cycling side where we're having a lot of PMS, and we may have a lot of estrogen dominance, and we have lower progesterone. And that could be another component because progesterone is a GABA chloride channel opener. So it opens those GABA chloride channels in the brain and allows us to relax. So a lot of people could have a lower progesterone, estrogen dominance, or just lower hormones across the board if we're on the menopausal side. And the crazy thing is we can also have similar symptoms if our thyroid is also low. This is why it's so important, why you cannot just, it's great to market it's for one thing, but it's really important that you look at the whole component to make sure, because I've had patients where, hey, thyroid was the missing key to their anxiety. Some it was low progesterone, some it was a combination of the two. And unless you're treating and looking at it and also treating it, then you'll know from experience what levers is moving what.
Yeah, and I briefly hit on the Hashimoto's, but maybe we should talk about it just for a second, because this is such a common issue. We're seeing women with all sorts of different levels of thyroid antibodies, from the teens to the hundreds to the thousands. And when the immune system is going after the thyroid, the first thought is, well, we've got to calm down the immune system. We've got to try to stop this attack on the thyroid. But really, and that's fine as a first thought, but really what we're seeing is you have to be addressing the other causes, because if you go and give someone like a thyroid multivitamin, like it's got your selenium and your chromium and trace minerals and all this stuff, that's good in theory, but you could stay on a thyroid multivitamin for 5 years and still never get to the root cause. Absolutely.
And the other thing I would think is, from a low-hanging fruit perspective, autoimmunity. So of course, gluten sensitivity can create GAD antibodies, and GAD is glutamate decarboxylase enzyme, which is the enzyme that helps make GABA in the brain. And GABA is that nice inhibitory relaxation chemical. So GABA is important. Gluten's a strong component in that autoimmune response, but also gluten can drive Hashimoto's, and you'll see an increase in thyroid peroxidase and thyroid globulin antibodies. And these antibodies are going to stimulate an attack on the thyroid, and you may spill out hormone. And as that hormone spills out, it could rev up the metabolism and create swings of anxiety there as well.
Now, did you ever experience that? I mean, you've talked about your story with Hashimoto's. Have you ever had a day or a week or a time in your life where maybe a stress or, when you first had your son, you had like heightened stress? Did you ever feel like, oh my God, like my Hashimoto's is kicking in? And did you feel that? Or
it definitely had episodes where I felt like blood sugar fluctuations, and that cortisol, adrenaline, blood sugar fluctuation swing has done issues in the past. And I also feel that potentially previous gluten exposures have potentially revved up the thyroid and had created some of those symptoms as well. So yeah, I have in the past for sure. I try to do my best to mitigate that as much as possible though.
Yeah, it's not fun. Yeah, the blood sugar piece too. I'm glad you hit that. Let's. I know we hit on that in kind of anxiety part one, but with the blood sugar, in terms of testing, right? We talked about hormones, we talked about gut, organic acids, etc. Blood sugar testing, how simple and easy is that? If you're feeling anxious, I mean, I had a time where I had impending doom. I thought, my God, the world's going to end. Something bad is about to happen. I don't know what it is. I checked my blood sugar. It was a 59.
Yeah. I know. And that's going to be an issue because low blood sugar will drive a lot of cortisol and adrenaline to pick it up. Now, again, if you're fully keto adapted, that's better because you'll have a lot more ketones there. But I still think having your blood sugar that low could definitely create some issues for sure.
Yeah. So if you have anxiety, I mean, don't automatically think, oh, it's Hashimoto's. It might not be. It could be something simple as low blood sugar or high blood pressure. When I was having some blood pressure swings, I noticed when the blood pressure was high, a side effect of that increased blood pressure was anxiety. So do you take anti-anxiety herbs or do you take blood pressure herbs? For me, it's a combination of both. I took like inhibitory things to support GABA theanine,
Exactly.
pharma, GABA, etc. And then I also did like some hawthorn berry and some folate and some other things to help blood pressure. So I kind of work on both. That's why really, people, they'll email us and they'll say, oh, Dr. J, can't you just give me a protocol for my Hashimoto's? It's like, do you see how bad of a question that is? It's like, we have no idea what the heck is going on. Or can't you just give me Dr. J, give me a parasite protocol? It's like, we have no idea what's going on. Like, give me an anxiety protocol. You can't just do that because what's the mechanism? What is the mechanism behind it? So, in the long run, you're going to spend so much more money 100%. Going to Whole Foods or Amazon and buying this anxiety supplement, stress busting supplement. Like, might help, probably won't hurt, but get the testing done, get the data, get the rocks turned over. I can't tell you how much time I wasted just taking this random herb for energy, this random herb for sleep, and I had no idea what I was up against.
100%. Well, excellent thoughts here today. I think we laid out some good references for various mechanisms and how we can go down this path, and of course how the gut is intimately connected. And I talked about the autoimmune mechanism a minute ago, and just to kind of dovetail on that, because today's podcast is on gut health and anxiety, a lot of that mechanism happens and works because of gut permeability. So with leaky gut and gut permeability, we're going to have that mechanism where we have undigested, whether it's yeast or bacterial or foods like gluten or casein compounds, get into that bloodstream through the gut lining, right? We have our tight junctions. They open up, especially with exposure to gluten and casein and potentially other endotoxins and fungus metabolites. They're going to open up. These things get into our bloodstream, and then our immune system is now exposed to it, or these things are now exposed to our immune system and can really heighten that autoimmune response now. And that's part of what's going on here. So autoimmunity is a big issue, especially if someone's anxiety is connected to a thyroid issue. There's a good chance that thyroid issue is autoimmune in nature, and the leaky gut part of it.
How simple of a thought, like your dinner at the pasta restaurant could be driving your anxiety and your autoimmune condition, but it's very well possible.
Well, excellent. Today was a phenomenal podcast. For everyone listening, if you want to dive deeper with Evan, head over to evanbrand.com. You can schedule a consult with Evan. And if you want to dive deeper with myself, justinhealth.com. Click there and we can schedule a consult and dive in deeper. And again, some of the labs we talked about today, we'll put links down beneath the podcast here on how to access some of these labs. Some of the gut tests are really important. Some of the adrenal tests, some of the neurotransmitter and metabolite tests. We'll make sure we have links down below as well. Evan, any other questions, comments, or concerns?
I would just say don't give up. If you do need some type of an anti-anxiety medication or something prescribed temporarily while you're working on the root cause, I'm not judging you for that. Neither is Dr. J. The point is just we want you to get to the root of this. And we see so many people that they want to get off their pharmaceutical medications and they don't know how. This is your roadmap to do so. So keep your head up, keep focusing on what else have I not done yet? What other rock do I need to turn over? My blood test and my doctor says I'm fine. Well, their blood test probably sucked. Get a better blood test. Let's figure out what the heck's going on.
Exactly. You guys are liking the show here. Put some comments down below. I'd like to hear what you think. Like to get suggestions on future episodes. Give us a thumbs up and a share as well. Really appreciate it. Evan, today was great, man. We will be in touch and we'll talk next week. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.